Hey guys, getting along with my process of wanting to get back into VOD reviews. I'm gonna get another one done today. This will be from the second series of Apex that was yesterday at this point. And this is gonna be, I'm gonna do map one actually between RunAway and Afreeca Blue. So if you haven't watched the whole series, I am gonna spoil it. So you might want to go away if you haven't seen it. But Afreeca Blue did end up 3-0ing RunAway. In fairly convincing fashion as well, which was quite a surprise. I actually predicted RunAway to get out of this group in first seed, and I know a lot of other people did as well when Redon did his groups predictions with various analysts and pro players and stuff. And just because we saw the form that RunAway was in at the end of the season, I mean, they almost won the grand finals, right? They were one map shy. Um, and Afreeca was not looking so hot. And yeah, Afreeca picked up, a new support player, but we just didn't anticipate that Afreeca was going to be, a particularly good team. But it's pretty clear that they've adjusted very well to the new meta. They've kind of reset up their team in a very good way. And RunAway is doing the same thing they were doing last season for whatever reason. They're experimenting with their roster when they had pretty clearly last season a working roster that was actually functioning quite well. So I wanted to do this map because I think the first map not only was the first time we saw this kind of new emergence from both teams, good for Afreeca and bad for RunAway. But I think specifically on Illios, we got to see very well illustrated these problems. So I figured this would be a good map to highlight from this series, at least, to show some of the issues RunAway has and, highlight some of the good stuff from Afreeca. So we'll get right into it. Once again, this is the Korean VOD, so you can listen to the Korean casters, not Papa Smithy and Illios, because the English VOD on YouTube is not up yet. So, for Afreeca Blue, I'm trying to think. Who is new? I can't even remember. It was Lucid, who's currently hovering Sombra, but he was Kongdu Uncia's Zenyatta Ana player, and IDK, who's new. I don't really know. I don't know anything about IDK. And RunAway is trying out Mirage, and Mirage is currently hovering Winston. He kind of stepped into Kaiser's position, and it was so weird to all of us because when you think about all the different players on RunAway, it's okay. You don't switch out Hoxall and Stitch; they're a really good DPS duo. You don't switch out Cox because Cox is a really good Ana. You don't switch out Kaiser because Kaiser was probably the best Reinhardt in the world. Maybe you switch out Runner. Runner is kind of an interesting debate because Runner's pretty clearly the emotional leader of the team. I don't know for sure, but I can't imagine that anybody else besides Runner is the shot caller. So maybe Runner's shot calling is integral to the team. Bumper's a very good flex player. So if you switch anybody out, it's probably most likely Runner. But this guy Mirage came in, and Mirage has, as we'll see over the course of even just this map, it's a weird hero pool, and it kind of interferes with what everyone wants to play. For Afreeca though, everything pretty much looks standard, except they're running triple DPS. It's a pretty standard comp these days. And as we'll see, it's actually a really good thing for Afreeca because one, Recry has been a player who last season I highlighted in one of my articles Recry's McCree play because I thought he was very good at kind of staying safe, not consuming too many of the team's resources, and especially on McCree, instead of playing it like a forward aggressive McCree, he was a kind of passive backline McCree, and he'd sit with his supports, he'd flashbang anybody who dove them, peel for them, as well as just keep outputting damage. And I thought that was really critical for a team like Afreeca Blue, where Arhan does consume so many resources. He took all the nano boosts, and if they had a Zarya, he took Zarya shields and stuff, and he didn't get much out of it, unfortunately. So Recry had to be this passive player. But now that Arhan is playing dive with Donghyun, who Donghyun starts playing Tracer, there's not only is there more threat proactively because Donghyun is just another threat on the board, and Arhan still isn't the most terrifying Genji in the world. But because there's so much forward threat with Mono and Winston and the two DPS divers, Recry gets to play that backline role, and he's really good at it. He just sits there, does a bunch of damage, and so it's really good for Recry. And when we look at RunAway, there's nothing wrong with their composition, except for the fact that Mirage, I don't think, is actually a tank player. I actually don't really know anything about him, but his Winston play is definitely not super spectacular, as we'll get into. So, just approaching, just some normal, getting up to the point. There's no Widowmaker, nothing kind of weird on this one. Yeah, Mirage goes really deep. And Afreeca Blue basically, because Mirage goes too deep. He goes deeper than Cox can actually support him and keep him healed up. So he doesn't end up getting picked off. And RunAway kind of just gets taken apart, It's kind of hard because whenever you get into these situations where it's Ana versus Zenyatta, that's one of the points that's it's difficult to consider, because if the team with the Ana has people who overextend, they just die because they get discorded or by the Zenyatta, and the Ana can't heal them anymore. So like when Mirage goes in like that on the Winston, he just dies. And then it turns into this point where, RunAway has started bleeding out kills, and Afreeca Blue can just take the point. So they get the early first cap, not really a problem. And then we see Mirage ends up switching to Soldier 76, right? Instead of the Winston, and Bumper comes off the D.Va onto the Winston. And this is always interesting because now we have very similar compositions, just the one support is different. And I really like having D.Va into these compositions, actually, because the D.Va is very effective at protecting your backline against Tracer and Soldier, because she can absorb, not Tracer, Tracer, Soldier, and Genji. She can absorb shurikens, Tracer damage, and Soldier damage, and pulse bombs, Helix rockets from Soldier, or you can throw your D.Va at the enemy Soldier and neutralize them from the fight, because she can just block everything from the Soldier. So it's kind of this weird mix now and Bumper is also not a Winston, like a prominent Winston player. Bumper, I think we mostly think of him for like Roadhog and D.Va as well, but he's not really like that main tank player. So Mirage's kind of weird hero pool doesn't seem to fit with the team super well, unfortunately. And it on the next point it gets worse, but Mono gets picked off, which kind of sucks, but Afreeca Blue kind of trades him for Mirage instead. Arhan here does Arhan stuff, goes a little aggressive, 4 HP, and he gets saved by the sound barrier. The sound barrier I don't think was thrown just for him, but the timing was pretty nice. So he does get saved, but you see though, one of the things I was talking about where Arhan goes in and what does he get? He gets 1 kill. I think he just kills the Winston. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he does kill the Winston, right? But he gets away. That's really all he does in this fight. He doesn't hit any of those shurikens there he's throwing, I don't even think. And we see Donghyun picks up a kill, Lucid picks up a kill, Recry picks up a kill, Donghyun picks up a double, right? It's other members of Afreeca now, because Donghyun is now on Tracer, and because Lucid is, new support, and he's a very good support. And Recry is opened up with all the forward pressure from Afreeca, that there is just all this offensive power to make up for Arhan's maybe lack of effectiveness that we've seen from him sometimes. And I think it's going to bode very well for Afreeca in the future. So RunAway doesn't change anything up again. To be that was kind of a dry push. They didn't really commit anything. And Afreeca, did commit a couple of ultimates. So RunAway maybe thinking, okay, give it, another fight or two, and we can, come in for this. But it's also at this point where we have to notice some of the stuff where, like, in that last fight, Runner was chasing Arhan, who literally had 4 health. He just needed to get up and hit one shot, punch him once, right? And he would have died. So at this point, we also have to think about what Lucio can do now. Lucio's kit is incredibly powerful, and it's worth having like a very talented mechanical player on that hero now, where previously it wasn't quite as worth it. I think, was it Coco? I think it was Coco from Envious who was like, it's worth having your best player on Lucio now. And unfortunately, there are times where we're going to see that runners' mechanics are definitely not up there, and that's one of them, unfortunately. So Mono's just, being obnoxious, and he gets forward, and this whole time, like, I don't really have anything to talk about, you see? RunAway just loses. They don't get on the point, they don't contest anything. Mono gets forward and zones really effectively. I have to give him props for the Primal Rage. And we see Stitch tries to get on the point, doesn't even get on it. So it's a 100 to 0, or 0 to 100 for Afreeca Blue. And there's just sort of... Mirage, I don't think, did enough on Soldier to justify him being on Soldier. And it's one of those things where if you just put him on Winston, I mean, he's not going to be Miro, right? He's not going to be Nox on Winston. But it's pretty easy, I think, to be a good Winston for a pro player, right? Especially if you're coordinating with your team, especially when you're coordinating with someone like Cox, right? You can be like, hey, Cox, oh my god, I need heals. And Cox is a good Ana. He'll be able to heal you up. So... I don't know, and I don't know if his Soldier justified the lack of the defensive power of having Winston and, D.Va on bumper. So here for Afreeca Blue, they're going with the same composition for, this one is, what is it? It's not Well, right? It is Lighthouse, right? I'm trying to remember, it's Kaiser. It is Lighthouse, okay. So then now RunAway here, we see, has changed everything up again. Now Mirage is playing Pharah, and Haksal is playing Winston, which, Haksal is like one of the best Genjis in Korea, and now he's being relegated to playing Winston. Cox is one of the best Anas, and is being relegated to playing Mercy. So at this point, you have to think about what we're giving up in exchange. So Mirage, a DPS player who, as we'll see when this point plays out, his Pharah is actually quite good. But the question is his Pharah so much better than his Winston that it makes up for Cox being on Mercy as opposed to Ana, and Haksal being on Winston as opposed to Genji. So we're taking Cox and Haksal, two very good players, putting them on heroes that they're not as practiced on, I'm assuming, and definitely they're going to have lower game impact on, knowing the type of players they are, to work around Mirage. And I don't think Mirage is worth it. Basically, the whole point of this series is I don't know why they weren't playing Kaiser. Especially now for the rest of this season, I really hope they play Kaiser, because RunAway needs every series now that they lost to Afreeca. If they lose another one, their season's looking in doubt. So anyways, Afreeca Blue, though, of course, has the Soldier at least to try and deal with the Farm Mercy, but aptly we see here, so Recry is up on this side of the map right now, and Mirage is obviously firing at him. But we also see Haksal reacting appropriately, where he's kind of fighting up here, but he's going to help the Pharmacy. Because whenever you run Pharmacy, that's going to be your, main kind of, like, artillery, heavy hitting damage source. Yeah, your Tracer and your Winston can get in and execute people when they're low, but you need the Pharah to really survive. So he goes for Recry. He's going to kind of leave the rest of the fight here and just hope it kind of goes well. Gets down, disrupts the Soldier. Soldier is not dead, but is, zoned out from the fight at least. And, I mean, Mirage is hitting rockets. He's definitely doing damage. But the issue is that RunAway kind of lost the rest of the fight. Yeah, and, they get shot down. So, I mean, Mirage definitely hits rockets. He was doing damage, but because... it's so tough because you're committing so much to it, because Cox is basically just helping Mirage, and because Mercy in the first fight never has ultimate, it always feels weird on that first fight. The Pharah player really has to step up. Once Mercy has res, of course, Mercy is very impactful in a fight, but that's only when she has ultimate, Oh, so they're getting in, just, fighting, trying to... Oops, sorry. Trying to treat damage. Mirage gets taken down. Was Cox not healing him? I'm going to go back and watch his health. Yeah, it looks like Cox wasn't even healing him. I don't know who Cox was healing, but it wasn't his Mercy. Yeah. I don't know. If you're not going to be running Pharah, The one-man resing just Mirage. I think it's going to pay off, though, because Afreeca Blue was already down a player, so the Transcendence really messes with that barrage. That really sucks, but might be okay. Okay, no. Arhan has to back off. Do they get it? I'm not sure. Okay, yeah. RunAway does get this one. That's right. Because, oh, wait. Maybe not. Mono's kind of messing with him. Alright. Yeah, okay, there we go. So RunAway does end up clearing it. So, because in theory, the thing is, though, Afreeca Blue already has a pretty solid composition to deal with Pharmacy. Because you already have the, Arhan in theory can try and deal with them on Genji, especially with Dragon Blade when he gets the dash reset, get up in their face. But Soldier plus Discord Orb from Lucid is very effective at taking them down. So they lost that one fight, and it makes sense because RunAway obviously committed very heavily. They used that tempo res almost. They resed one player just to bring the Pharah back up. But the Pharah did have Barrage, so you can understand why they were so invested in bringing her back up. So Stitch is, being Stitch. Stitch is a really good tracer. And this is where it gets hard to retake with triple DPS. Because triple DPS, especially without Ana, because you just lacked that the raw healing output from Ana compared to Zenyatta. I think it works better when you're attacking and you kind of can set up an attack, but when it's like on a King of the Hill map where it's more even footing, it's less effective. Wow, kill Stitch, and Runner gets picked off. Difference in Lucia's there, right? IDK gets a kill and Runner just dies. Yeah. That was pretty good from Arhan, actually. I know one of the biggest complaints about Arhan that a lot of people have is that he only has highlight plays when he's using a Dragon Blade. He doesn't get that many, animation cancel, dash executes off, like a lot of other top Genjis do. But that was a pretty good sequence from him. And the other thing is, Arhan was playing this series very well, and later in the series, Arhan starts playing a lot of Tracer, so Donghyun can go back to other picks. And he was playing a really solid Tracer. He really was. Because Tracer, unlike Genji, gives him more tools to escape situations, actually, because he can just press E and recall out of situations that he's, got himself into that he shouldn't be in. But Afreeca Blue, so RunAway was in control of the point, so Afreeca Blue flips it back. And at this point, this is actually really brutal, because I don't know what you're supposed to do in this point, because at this point you're so heavily committed to this, composition, and with 15% left, you kind of want to stick with whatever ultimate charge you have left. But all you really have is Sound Barrier. And Sound Barrier is, yeah, it's good, but they also have Transcendence, which is roughly equivalent. But there's also the chance that somebody just gets picked off by Pulse Bomb. You have to attack onto a point when they have Primal Rage to stall. And as well as you lack a lot of healing output, because Cox is now on Soldier. When did he actually switch? I actually missed when he switched, because I don't like that switch. Okay, so he switches now. I don't know how much I like that, because yeah, Soldier can heal. He brings a lot of damage, obviously, but you're already running Pharah and Tracer. I think I would prefer to see Ana, especially going into the last fight, because Arhan's pretty close to Dragon Blade, so you can anticipate that he'll probably have it. So having at least the chance of hitting a Sleep Dart, and Cox is pretty good at that. I think I'd prefer to have that, to be honest. But Cox goes down, and at that point it's just over. When you lose a player before you even reach the point, and they still have ultimates to fight you with, there's no way you're gonna win that. And as we see, it doesn't happen. Afreeca Blue takes that, and they end up 2-ing the map. So it is really unfortunate that RunAway seems to be... I don't know what they're doing, honestly, with these roster changes. They do bring Kaiser in back for Volskaya for the 3rd map, and that was probably the closest map of the series, to be fair. But even then, Afreeca Blue looked dominant over them. I think allowing Recry to sit in the backline with Soldier has been like a total turnaround for the roster. Recry has always been a player that's been pretty good with low resources because Archons consume so much, and now that they have unfortunately, it sounds harsh, but they have better support players now. It seems, at least. We know Lucid is a better support player, and IDK from his first series, at least so far, has looked very good. And Mono is not really a name that you thought of as like some sick Reinhardt, so the fact that Winston's in is good for him. Afreeca Blue looks like they could upset this group, definitely, because who else is their competition? It's like X6 Gaming and... Oh, who was the other one? Shoot. There's RunAway, Afreeca Blue, X6 Gaming, and let me see. I'm going to figure out who this was. Unsi. Wait, oh yeah, and Uncia. Yeah. And Uncia is another team that we don't know how they're doing right now. So this could be a really interesting group because Afreeca Blue, now that they have that one series, if they look this good and they can take down RunAway, there's a chance they can beat X6, and if they do that, they're just in playoffs. And that's actually really, really crazy. Afreeca Blue was a team that I think a lot of people didn't have getting out of this group because we expected RunAway to be very good. We expected Uncia to still be solid. And X6 kind of looked like the dark horse kind of team. But Afreeca Blue seems to really change their focus around, which is what they needed to do. RunAway seems to be having some identity issues, kind of like they were in Season 2 of Apex. But the problem in this season of Apex for them is their group is so much harder. They don't have Flashlux Fnatic in their group. They don't have like 2 free wins, essentially. Afreeca Blue was one of the weaker teams they're going to have to play. Now they're going to have to play Uncia and X6, which are teams that are just as good, if not better. So they're going to need to figure out their identity issues that they look like they're having. Mirage either needs to pick a role and stick to it, or they just need to kick him out for Kaiser. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I think this map really does highlight some of the issues that these teams were having.